Well, hello everyone. Welcome to my week 1 video, part 1. And in part 1, I'm going to tell you all about the course, many important details that you need to know to do well, and just generally give you an introduction and review what we call the syllabus. Good times, right? So first of all, let me tell you who I am. I'm Patty Ireland, so think of leprechauns and shamrocks, and you'll remember my name. And I have the red hair to go along with it, so you've got the whole package there, and it's pretty easy to remember. But most of my students call me Professor I. That's sort of been a tradition at the Strawberry Plains campus, where I have been teaching literally since the doors opened there. And so I'm very comfortable with that if you're wondering what to call me. And so if you want to follow along with me, I realize that reviewing the syllabus can feel somewhat boring, but it's important because there are a lot of details there, as I say, that you need to be aware of. So to follow along, on our Brightspace course page, click on Content up at the top of the page. And then you'll see in the left-hand sidebar there, under Table of Contents, Course Syllabus. And so it'll be good for you to sort of follow along with me as I'm talking to you. So you see our section number there up at the top, W07. This is English 1010, so this is a Composition 1 class where you learn all the basics of college writing. And again, I know what you're thinking, syllabus, blah, 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 but please actually do read and process this information because it's all going to be very important for you as we're going along in the course. You see my email address there, and that's the quickest and best way to get in touch with me. My office is Strawberry Plains 2709, and should you go there, I would ask that you wear a mask for your protection and for mine. However, I'm not holding traditional office hours this semester. I am doing so virtually. So if you want to arrange to speak with me privately through a virtual conference, we can do that through Teams. And so, just send me an email and let me know. You can also phone my office phone, which you'll also see there in the beginning of your syllabus. By the way, that word syllabus is a Greek word. You'll hear a lot of that in academia and higher education. And basically the syllabus is a document that your professor should give you on the very first day of class that outlines what the course is going to do, what you can expect from the course, and what will be expected of you. So if you hear that big word and you're like, what the heck is a syllabus? That's what that is. I do teach an on-ground class on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings, and so I'm not available, obviously, during those times. So I'll tell you just a little bit about me before we get into the syllabus. I am from a little town called East Ridge, and you have to say it like that because that's how we talk in East Ridge. And it's a big little town. It's located right on the border between Chattanooga and the Georgia state line. And we have a lot of interesting things in East Ridge. We have the Purdy Do Beauty Shop. So if you're ever there and you want to get your hair done, just stop into the Purdy Do, and P-U-R-D-Y do, seriously. And I can promise you, you won't look the same when you come out as you did when you went in. You may not be very pretty in your own estimation, but you'll look different. We also have the Party Mart, and there's a sign outside that says, "Stop where pleasure starts, Party Mart." So you can get your beer in there, you can get your National Enquirer, you can even get a Bible. So everything you need for life in East Ridge is there at the Party Mart. I'm told that we now have an East Ridge museum. I can't quite imagine what would be in there since we have never done anything of importance, but it would be interesting to see what's in there. I also usually tell my students a silly story about a girl that I went to school with at East Ridge Junior High, and that dates me, I know. with a very unusual name on the first day of class, because we're generally calling the roll in a normal class setting. So her last name was O'Rear, another good Irish name, O''Rear, and her parents, in their great wisdom, named her Fanny. So her name was Fanny O'Rear. Yikes. And so you can imagine the terrible teasing that this poor girl endured all through her life. And not only was she teased for her name, but she was kind of an unusual kid. She was sort of a goth before that was even a thing. She wore all black, and she would sit in class and draw coffins on her notebook paper and everything. And so she and I became kind of sort of friends in gym class, because we were the last two people chosen to be on anyone's team. And in Fanny's case, it was because she had these big, thick bifocal glasses, and she just literally couldn't see the ball coming at her. She could just knock her in the head and knock her lights out. She didn't know it was coming. With me, I didn't have that excuse. I had really good vision, but I was just a klutz, just a natural born klutz, and remain so to this day. So I may tell you more stories as we go along about Fanny, but the moral of the story is, if you have a nickname that you prefer to go by, and we have the more formal names on our rosters, obviously, then be sure and let me know that in our very first discussion board posting, Getting to Know You. Let me know what you would like to be called. Or maybe you just hate your name. Maybe you have a god-awful name like Fanny O'Rear, and you just want to be called Sue or George or something. Just let me know, and within reason, we can certainly do that. So you see the prerequisites there. This is an asynchronous online class, and what that word means is that all of the class assignments, all of the information is conveyed to you through our Brightspace, also called D2L, and that stands for Desire to Learn page. So this class never meets virtually in real time. We don't ever meet all together virtually in real time. Rather, you take part in the weekly activities, the discussions, you submit assignments, etc., all through Brightspace. So I want to welcome you to this class. It's one of the most important classes you will experience in your college career. It truly is. And I don't say that because I teach it. I'm privileged to teach it. But I say that because this class lays the foundation for everything else that is to come in college for you. It strengthens your writing and communication skills. And those are important skills, not just in college, but in life. If you're not able to effectively communicate verbally and through the written word with other people, that's seriously going to hamper you in your personal life and in your professional life. So this class gives you those essential abilities. It helps you learn to write persuasively and effectively, and to direct your message to a specific kind of audience. All colleges and universities in the United States require a class like English 1010. At UTK, where I taught for some time, we called it 101. So regardless of your major, this is an important class, and here is why. Because everything you learn about writing and thinking critically in this class needs to be applied to every other college class you will ever take. So please get that in your head. We're not just going through these processes for this class. These are the foundational writing and communicating and thinking skills that you need for every other class. So the skills you learn here need to be applied in all your other classes. I think most importantly, though, this class does more than just satisfy a requirement. It allows you to discover, to celebrate, to tap into the power of words, the power of language for a lifetime. And so my hope for you is that you can profit from and actually enjoy the experience that we're about to share together as a community of writers and thinkers. You might not have thought of yourself as a writer before, but I hereby deem you a writer. And I want this class to provide you with experiences that you'll remember throughout your life. Not just college skills, but life skills. So welcome. You'll see there that there are a couple of books that are required for this class. There are a few readings that are up on our Brightspace course site. But our main reader is the Norton Field Guide, the Norton, as they would say in New York. And you see a picture of it there on your syllabus and all the information. And that's where most of our readings will be found. The other book that is required for this class and also for Comp 2, 1020, which you will also need to take after this class, is the Little Seagull Handbook with exercises and code. And so it is a wonderful book with information about grammar and mechanics. So if you're writing and you're thinking, oh my gosh, should I be using a comma here? Or what's the rule about apostrophes again? The Little Seagull is going to give you that information. Also, it's going to give you an entire chapter on MLA citation, which is a form of citing our sources that we'll be learning about a little later on in the semester. And so all of that information is super important for you to have. Notice that there is an ebook. There is an online version if you prefer that rather than a hard copy. And I think it may be a bit cheaper than the hard copy, but the bookstore will know all about that. But in either case, we will be using the online Inquizitive feature, and I'm going to talk about that here in just a moment in more detail, that accompanies this book. So you will need the code for that if you purchase the hard copy. I won't waste your time, or take up your time, I should say, in going through the TBR Communications Learning Outcomes and Expected Learning Outcomes for this course. And TBR, by the way, is our governing body, the Tennessee Board of Regents, located in Nashville. But if you want to read those on your own so that you kind of understand, what this class is designed to teach you, then that's a good thing for you to do. So now we're getting into the course description, the grading scale part of the class, which is really important. Students will come back later on at the end of the semester, and clearly they did not read any of this or watch my video because they're quite confused about grading. And then they're panicked, and then it's too late to do anything about it. So it's really important for you to grasp this information now. Now is the time to be concerned about doing your work in the class and grades. Now, all the way through the next 16 weeks. So this class is an exploration of what we call expository writing, and that's a kind of writing that seeks to present reasons, explanations for an idea or an argument. It contains a main idea, which we call a thesis. It contains supporting evidence for that idea, and a conclusion, and it's always done in a logical sort of order, and also persuasive writing, which obviously is a kind of writing that seeks to persuade or convince someone to do or to believe as one wishes. So it's a writing intensive course, and it's structured around a workshop type environment, even though this is an online class. So you're expected to write essays, to write discussion board postings every week, to develop your critical thinking skills, and that means to look at everything from all sides. So when I was a little girl, my daddy, who was such a wonderful man, used to say to me, Tug, and that was his nickname for me. He called me Shug, and I couldn't pronounce it, and it came out Tug, so that became my nickname. He would say, Tug, before you make up your mind about anything, remember that there are at least two sides to every question and every issue. And you want to look at all sides and think about them before you make up your mind. So that's critical thinking. And that's one of the goals of this class. So we develop those skills through reading, through engaging with a variety of different texts, including one another's writing. So through the readings, we develop a rhetorical awareness, and you'll hear that big word coming back to haunt you a lot. So stay tuned, and we'll be talking more about that word rhetoric, but basically, for our purposes, it means effective communication. Regarding how texts persuade and how professional writers position an argument depending upon who the audience is, who's listening or who's reading, and also other issues that are super important there, like the purpose, what's the point of the argument, and the genre. That's a fancy word that means the kind of writing this is. So we'll do writing exercises, we'll do formal essays, we'll practice the techniques that we're learning and discovering, and then apply them into our own writing, putting a lot of emphasis on the processes of writing. So this isn't high school. It is so not going to be like that. You need to know that up front. You cannot write a college paper the night before it's due and expect to make a very good grade. It does not work that way. This is a process, as you will see. And also we'll learn formatting and research skills. So to sort of give us a focus for our readings and our discussions, we'll have a class theme. And in this case, our theme is In Search of Ourselves, an exploration, can't talk, of rhetoric, so effective communication, and composition, which is a word that means, of course, writing. So that theme sort of serves as an island from which we can venture forth and explore a lot of ideas, and then always sort of return back to that common theme to ground us. So through our readings, through our activities, we'll think about how ideas of self-identity. So what makes you, you? What makes me, me? What sort of got us here? How are those ideas developed? How are they formed? How are they influenced by things like our culture, our religious views, our geographic location? So where you were born and raised. Were you born in a rural area? Did you grow up in the city? Family, their values, the media, education, gender, other significant factors that really influence who we become. And we'll discover how the power of words are powerful things, okay? They can birth and they can kill. They have power in this world. So how the power of words allows that self to shine forth. And some of the issues we'll touch upon are what elements blend together to make us who we are. How can we come to understand each other better through these ideas of understanding ourselves? And how do writers employ all these elements of self-identity, sort of revealing to us who they are through their writing, to persuade their audiences and to further explore and expound upon a topic of inquiry, a question that they're exploring. So we'll unravel those kinds of questions through our readings, through our essays, as we're learning to recognize and use these writing techniques and grounding ourselves into that theme. The class is divided up into 4 units, and each of those units corresponds with a major paper that you write at the end of that section. So the first one is called Words Equal Power, because they do, as I just said. And that will center on developing an understanding of the power of language to move us, to change us individually and collectively. We'll explore the writing of what's called summary and response, and it also sometimes is called summary and paraphrase. And there'll be a separate video on that. And that's our very first paper assignment. The first major paper that we'll be writing will be a summary and response. So this first unit will also introduce you to a lot of the rhetorical skills. There's that word again, the communicative skills, the ideas, the terms that you'll use throughout your academic career as a reader, as a writer, and a thinker. Our second unit is rhetorical analysis. There's that word again, digging deeper into the soul of the writer. So now we're going to analyze the communication of the writer in this unit. And it focuses on identifying and analyzing techniques that writers use and appeals that they use to appeal to an audience in various readings. So the paper that you'll submit at the end of that section will ask you to rhetorically analyze a text of your choosing from our reader and to consider the unique sense of selfhood that that author is revealing through his or her rhetorical methods. And we'll also be introducing MLA citation, which I mentioned earlier, in that unit. The third unit is called comparing and contrasting. And so obviously that's going to help you look at two different texts, two different readings, considering the elements in both that are similar and that may be different, comparing and contrasting them. So this section also teaches you to investigate an idea, to sort of look at the evidence, to set forth an argument ethically and effectively. And it further expounds upon MLA citation methods, correct incorporation of quotes, and the evaluation of your sources to see, are the sources I'm using reliable? And it culminates in that argumentative compare-contrast paper. And then finally, that last section, Finding Your Voice, sums up all of our readings as the semester is winding down, and it culminates in a researched argument essay in which you present an argument effectively to your reader. So that's sort of how it all is laid out. You see the grading scale there. And so you can see that the bulk of the grade in this class is made up of the major papers. The summary and response, the rhetorical analysis essay, the compare-contrast essay, the researched argumentative essay, and then the final exam, which is a very short writing. But that's the bulk of the grade. And so, again, college is quite different from high school. There are two things you need to know right off the bat. Number one, you cannot wait until the last couple of weeks of class and submit things late. College does not work that way at all. So be sure you understand that. If you submit something late, first of all, you're not going to be able to, because the drop box is closed, right? So unless you have a valid reason as to why you were not able to submit something and you're communicating with me about it via email, then you're not going to be able to submit that, and you will receive a 0 in it. And you need to understand, it doesn't work like high school. Many high schools allow you the last couple of weeks to submit anything you didn't already submit and get a certain percentage of the credit. College classes do not do that. So if you don't submit things on time and keep up with things, you will fail. That's the first thing that you really, really need to understand. And the second thing that you need to understand is that it isn't just about turning things in. There are students who can turn every assignment in a college class in and do it on time and still fail, right? College is about the quality of your work too. So it's very important that you turn everything in and turn it in on time. But this is about quality. So if you turn in an assignment and the quality of the writing isn't up to the level that we're looking for, you're not going to make an A on it. And the quality of college level writing is set much higher than high school. That's why this is college and that was high school. Okay, the bar is now raised. And so that's what you're here to learn in this class. And you need to very clearly grasp those ideas up front. So note that if we were in a normal class situation, meeting in person, that class would meet for 3 hours a week. And in addition to that, in class time, you would be completing work outside of class time, like your reading, your writing assignments, all of that, your quizzes. This class is no different in terms of the time that you need to put in to succeed. So expect to put in from 4 to 6 hours of time every week to succeed in this class. And note that that we can see what you're doing in the course. The students don't realize that. We can see how many hours you've put in. We can see exactly where you went on the course site. Everything is recorded there. So if a student comes back later on and says, "Oh, but I was on the course every single week, and I went here and I did the readings, and I did this assignment, I did this quiz." The actual records are there so that there's no disputing. So, I've seen students who have just claimed to put in all this time, and then you go into the course and they've maybe been on in 16 weeks 3 hours. No way could they pass the class in a situation like that. So be aware up front of all of these things. I do my very best to turn major papers around quickly, and to get them graded, although I do take time to make sure I'm being fair to you. So it's possible that it could take up to 2 weeks for grades to be posted after a major paper, due to the fact that I'm teaching 4 different classes. So I have over 100 people that I'm dealing with. And if you do the math there, if it takes 10 minutes to get through a paper and you've got 100 people, do the math and see how many hours that is. It's a lot of hours, and generally it takes more than 10 minutes in a lot of cases to really be fair to that student, to grade fairly and extensively on that paper. So I do generally turn them around in about a week, but sometimes it might take a bit longer. So now we get to the good old course policies and requirements, and you see the disability services statement there. So if you need an accommodation, like extra time on a quiz, for example, because of a disability, or maybe you have emergency medical situation that you need to share with me, you should let me know immediately via a private email. And note that we cannot, by law, give you accommodations unless you have an accommodation plan on file with our disability services office, and the syllabus gives you the information to contact them. But we cannot by law do it at all unless you have that current accommodation plan for this semester. You see the email and the Brightspace D2L correspondence blurb there. So if you need to communicate with me, send an email to paireland@pstcc.edu or through the email here on Brightspace. And if you do send the email to the PA Ireland account, be sure to do so from your Pellissippi email account. And here is why. Because particularly with the recent ransomware attack that we suffered, if you send that email from your personal email, it will go directly into a spam folder. And we cannot access our spam folders like you do on your personal email. We can't just click spam and see what came in. The system will not allow it as a protective measure. And now IT is being doubly protective after what we just went through. So if it goes into spam, I will eventually get an email alert from IT saying, you have some emails in your spam folder, but it might be 2 weeks after you send that email that I get it. So if you're asking for an extension, or if you have an emergency, I may not even know it for 2 weeks, and that could seriously hamper you as a student. So be sure you email me from your Pellissippi account. And note that I'll respond to you as quickly as possible. I'm usually pretty good at that. But if your email comes late in the day, it will be the following day before I will see it. And if it's coming on a morning that I'm teaching an on-ground class, it's probably going to be after I get back from that on-ground class that I'm going to see it. If you email over the weekend, I may not be able to respond until that following Monday morning. So I try to be prompt, and I am pretty prompt at responding. But like everyone else, like you and everybody else, I need some time to just be a person. I need some time to rest and recoup and be with my family and eat dinner at night. And so I appreciate your mindfulness of those facts. We're people too, and we need that time. And so we've already talked about, the fact that the major papers count for the bulk of the grade, and they count actually for 70% of your final grade. Paper formatting. So This says all papers must be typed. Well, duh, obviously you need to do that. We're in an online class. But if we were in an in-person class, that would be more important there. But double spaced. Do not single space a college paper. They must be double spaced. And they should have just standard, normal 1-inch margins. They should be typed in Times New Roman 12-point font. So that is a particular font that we use for college level writing. So up in the upper left-hand corner should be your name, my name, Professor Ireland, the name of this course, English 1010, and then the date. And that's the order that it should appear in the upper left-hand corner, double space. All pages over in the right-hand corner should contain your last name and the page number. And so that's MLA formatting. And there's an MLA help section on our Brightspace course page. If you go to content and then look in that left-hand sidebar for MLA help, and you'll also, of course, find, again, the MLA information in the Little Seagull Handbook. So I'll be giving you sample papers that show you what that formatting looks like before you ever submit paper 1. But that is how all your papers should be formatted. All the documents for the course are already up online here on our Brightspace course site for your convenience. So not all the readings, most of them are from our Norton book, but all the documents that you'll need to read. So if you, again, click on content up at the top of the page, and then look on the left-hand sidebar for course documents, you will find all of those, and they're in alphabetical order. And note that, there may be times when you need to click load more at the bottom of the page if you don't find a particular document that you're looking for. So there are 4 quizzes on the various readings and the concepts, the ideas of this course throughout the semester. Excuse me, and each one of those quizzes is worth 5% of your final grade for a total of 20% of the final grade. So they're announced in the syllabus, they're announced in the weekly checklist, and I'm going to tell you about that here in just a minute. Those are really important. So to take a quiz, you'll click on quizzes, again, up at the top of the Brightspace page, and then you'll click on the appropriate quiz, quiz 1, quiz 2, whatever. Note that quizzes are generally not made up. If you've missed the deadline, you'll have a full week in which to take them, but they generally are not made up. This is not high school, right? Unless you have a legitimate reason for having missed that quiz, like an illness, God forbid, or some sort of terrible emergency, or you're in the hospital, and you contact me in a prompt manner via email or via a phone call in my office and let me know that you need to take that quiz late. Otherwise, students receive a 0. Part of what we're here to learn in college is maturity and responsibility and the importance of deadlines. Those are very important in the real world, as those of you who have a job know, right? So revisions. Good writing is about the process of going back and looking at your writing and saying, let me revise this. Let me make it better, right? So to that end, you may revise one of the major papers to receive a higher grade on that paper from this class. And that is something that I offer to you. I don't have to do it. I do it because I care about my students, and I feel like it's a good thing for me to do for you. So this revision has to be turned in to me no later than 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, April the 5th. And there are no exceptions to that rule, right? No exceptions, because you've known about that literally from day 1. And also because that's falling toward the end of the semester when we are inundated with work and grading. So that's the firm deadline. And obviously the closer we get to the date of that revision, I'll be reminding you of it. You'll see it coming up in the weekly checklist as we get closer. But to revise the paper, you want to correct your errors in a new version of that paper. So make sure you're saving all of those major papers on your computer. And then you want to submit it into the assignments tab. So again, you'll click on content up toward the top of the page. Or no, I'm sorry, you'll just click on assignments up at the top of the page. And once you're in assignments, look for paper revisions to upload your revision. You'll also want to write a brief 1/2 page minimum explanation to me, detailing the changes that you made, and submit that along with that corrected paper. And in that explanation, you just want to describe the most frequent errors you encountered, explain how you plan to avoid them in future writing, and then your final grade for that revision will be the average of your initial essay grade and your new revised grade. So if you do this correctly and you submit the explanation along with the paper, and you've corrected all of the errors, you've reflected a full revision process and editing, then you could possibly raise your score on that paper grade a whole letter. That happens frequently. So to be eligible to turn in a revision on either papers 1 or 2, you have to choose one of those. Choose whichever one was the lower of the 2 grades, and also consider that I think paper 1 is worth 10%, paper 2 is worth 15%. So sort of do the math there. But to be eligible, you must have turned in the previous major papers on time up to that point, up to the 5th of April. You must have turned them in on time, and that's your reward. And also note that students who earned an A on papers 1 and or 2 are not eligible to submit a revision on that A paper because they've already earned an excellent score. So that's a 91 or above. So we'll hold peer reviews for papers 1 and 2. And any student who doesn't submit a rough draft by the peer review deadline dates that are listed on the syllabus and also listed in your weekly checklist will have 10 points automatically deducted from his or her paper grade. And the reason for that is, again, we're emphasizing the process of writing. The idea that, okay, I need to get better at this, right? I need to go back and correct my errors. And so during those first 2 papers, when we do the peer review, I'll have you submit a rough draft to me. I'll have you also submit a rough draft so that a peer, a classmate, can review it, and you can then in turn review a classmate's paper. And I'll give you questions and guidelines to go by as you're doing that. But I will give you extensive, detailed feedback, which takes a lot of time. And note that a lot of professors do not do that because it's very time consuming. Essentially, the professor is grading papers 1 and 2 twice. And when you're dealing with 100 people, that's a lot of grading hours, right? That's a lot of additional time that you're devoting. I do that because I want you to learn, and I feel like that's a good way for you to learn. But what this means is that you're going to need to go in and look at the comments I've made on those rough drafts and then enact my suggestions into the final draft so that you can earn a higher score. If you don't pay any attention to my suggestions, you can't learn. And every suggestion that I've made, every error that I've noted, that means you're going to get points deducted if you don't go in and correct it on that final draft. So, I'm willing to put in the time, but you need to also do your part there. So that's with papers 1 and 2. And then we'll engage in a pre-writing process for paper 3. And that's where you'll submit a pre-written intro and thesis and a little informal outline and things like that, and I'll give you feedback. So at paper 3, you'll be assuming more responsibility for your own writing, as I won't be giving those detailed comments like I will on papers 1 and 2. And again, if you don't submit the pre-writing materials by the deadline time listed on the syllabus and on your weekly checklist, then 10 points are automatically deducted from your paper 3 grade. With paper 4, you assume even more responsibility now. And we hold a self-review process for paper 4, where you go back and you look at a previous paper and the comments that I made on that previously graded paper, and you note the errors that you made. And then you go through a self-review process to make sure you're not repeating those same errors. And again, if you don't submit the self-review on time, then you get those 10 points docked from the paper grade. The only exception for these policies will be if you can provide documentation for a valid excuse as to why you couldn't turn this in on time. So illness, death in the immediate family, God forbid, an accident, God forbid, something like that. There will be 10 weekly discussion boards, and I know this is getting boring, but it's so important for you to grasp all of these concepts now. So there will be 10 weekly discussion boards in the class, and each weekly board will be graded. It will count for 10 points. These discussion boards take the place of the activities, the group activities, the discussions that we would normally be doing in an on-ground class. So they are super important for you to manage and to do and to engage in every week. And so all of these boards together count for a total of 100 possible points in the class, or 10% in the course of your final grade. So to achieve these points for each week's discussion board, you have to first answer the questions according to the instructions that I'll give you that are posted on each board. And then you want to offer a substantive response to one classmate, okay? And so substantive means, don't just say, oh, what a great posting you wrote. Good job, right? I mean, and it's nice to compliment your classmate. And if you want to do that, that's great. But add something more to it, some comment that's substantive about the topic there. And a grading rubric is accessible on the forums to show you how the postings are graded. The boards are set up so that you have to post first before you can respond to anyone else's posting. And that's to encourage you to do the thinking all by your lonesome self. So your initial postings for each weekly board will be due by 11:59 p.m. on a Wednesday night every week. And then the remaining response posting to that one classmate in the designated board, and the instructions will tell you which one, will be due by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday nights. So note that there are a few weeks that require 2 discussion topics in the board that you have to post to, while other weeks will require just 1 topic. But every week there's only 1 response that will be due to 1 classmate. And so you have to complete all 10 weekly discussion board postings and responses thoughtfully and fully to receive the full 100 points. So I do want to also say that this very first week of classes, I'm going to make an exception, and I'm going to allow you to wait until this Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. to turn everything in for the first week's board. So in other words, you can do your initial postings in the getting to know you topic and in the other topic, and your response to the one classmate, and all of that will not come due until this coming Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. And that's to allow you to just sort of get the lay of the land this first week, and also if anyone adds the class late. But after this first week, the initial postings will always be due on a Wednesday night at 11:59 p.m. All right, so now we get to the Inquizitive. We're almost to the end. Whew, I know. So Inquizitive is a digital resource. It's an online supplement to the Little Seagull Handbook, as I mentioned before. And in a nutshell, it's an adaptive quizzing tool that combines interactive question types with game-like elements to make it a little more enjoyable. to help you learn the rules of standard English, grammar, and mechanics, which are important in college writing. So rather than me just giving you a bunch of quizzes to do or exercises to do, I should say, we're doing it through online Inquizitive. So there will be several Inquisitive exercises assigned for this class. They do not count for an actual grade. You'll be able to see your score that you made, but they won't count into the grading of this class. However, here's the caveat. You probably will not pass the quizzes, which will have some similar grammar and mechanics questions in them, unless you have engaged in the Inquisitive activities. So remember, each quiz counts for 5% for a total of 20 of your final grade. So unless you've done the Inquisitives, you're probably not going to pass the actual quizzes that do count toward your grade. And in addition, you won't be counted present in the class unless you've completed the Inquisitive exercises. I'll receive a report that tells me who did or did not complete those assigned Inquisitive exercises. So Inquisitive is also helpful in terms of the writing of the major papers in this class, because if you see in my comments, for example, that you're making a lot of errors involving sentence fragments or comma splices or something like that, the Inquisitive exercises will actually help improve your skills there, and thus again improve your grades on the major papers, which count for the bulk of the grades in the class. I give you some information there about the registration code and the cost of that, and also if you go to content and then again in the left-hand sidebar you look at Inquisitive in the ebook, and look at how to register for Inquisitive in the ebook, you'll get some specifics there as well. Note that attendance is important, and if you're considering dropping or withdrawing from a course, check with financial aid before doing so, as doing so might adversely affect your lottery eligibility or your financial aid in some way. I'll let you read the non-discrimination policy, the emotional well-being support, the grade appeal policy, the syllabus statement, the COVID-19 procedures, all on your own, good times, right? But I do want to talk about academic dishonesty. So we use a system here at Pellissippi, and most colleges and universities use it, called Turnitin. So when you submit a major paper, it automatically goes through Turnitin. And just as students have become, savvy, obviously, about buying papers online or, that sort of thing, professors have become a lot more savvy, and the Turnitin system allows us to check for plagiarism. So be aware of that. Unfortunately, almost every semester, I do have at least one student who will plagiarize, and most students don't do that, thankfully, but there will be a few who do. And that's just something that you do not want to engage in, because it can really, really hurt you. Getting into a four-year university, if you plan to transfer, or getting into a program is hard. It's competitive. And when the university sees on your record that you have been caught plagiarizing, they're going to pass you up, because there are all kinds of other students who never did that. So it's much better to earn an honest C or D or F than a dishonest A or B, or a dishonest anything. So do bear all of that in mind. So attendance, I'll just reiterate this for you again. The way we take attendance in an asynchronous online class is I'm looking to see if you completed all the activities for each week that are listed in the weekly checklist section and listed on our syllabus. If you've done them all and you did them on time, then I count you present for that week. If you only did half of them, then you're counted present for half the week. So that's the way that works. It's based upon what you do. The weekly checklists are wonderful. Be sure to make use of them. They're fabulous. So again, if you click on content, scroll all the way down to the bottom of that left-hand sidebar and you'll see weekly checklist. And if you click on week 1, week 2, you'll see a full listing there of everything due for that week, when it's due, and that's the very best way to keep up with your assignments in the class. So you'll see that I have given you all kinds of helpful resources, lots of them. So it's all there to help you succeed. It can feel kind of overwhelming at first, especially if you've never taken an online asynchronous class before. But I give you some tips here for navigating the site. You want to follow the exact directions in the weekly checklist or on the reading schedule here within the syllabus to know where, when, and how to submit or post within our course site. And that's the most important tip that I can give you. So be sure you get that. Make use of the weekly checklist. So look for course documents and readings under content. Post your major papers, rough drafts, ideal worksheets, etc. through the assignments tab up at the top of the page. Take quizzes through the quizzes tab up at the top. Email classmates through the class list tab, also at the top of the page. And post to discussion boards through the discussions tab up at the top. There is online and in-person tutoring help this semester. And, note that the tutors, generally their only job is to tutor. So unlike us, they do not have all this massive grading to do. They don't have committee work to do. They don't have assessments to do. Their one job is to help you. So often we are just inundated and we are not able to help you as much as we would like, but they're there. And so take advantage of them, both online through Ask a Tutor and at the in-person tutoring centers on the campus nearest to you. They're happy to read through your papers. They're happy to help you at any stage of the writing process. I give you some online research information through the library there, and also some resources to help you. So under general information about resources for students, you'll find help with Brightspace, campus resources to link you up with everything from Panther Help to the Pellissippi Pantry. Should a student need some assistance with food. Under technology tools and support, you'll find Brightspace and Office 365 tutorials, a link to tutoring. Under free literature, you'll find all kinds of links to help you with accessing readings. And under grammar exercises to help you and grammar support, you'll find sheets with grammar rules and links to exercises beyond the Inquizitive to, again, help you overcome any errors that you're repeating. There's library information where there's a library tutorial, MLA info, an English 1010 library guide, and there's that MLA help section. And so if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, also in the discussions tab, you'll find forums that are helpful that are not graded, but that are just there to help you. And the first one is the 1010 Cafe. It's a discussion board forum on our Brightspace course site where you can talk to each other. Obviously that's virtually. But if you have class questions, if you just want to get to know each other, it's a way that you can do that. There are some netiquette rules posted that I ask you to follow. I do not grade the writings in the cafe, but I do monitor the board to make sure that everybody is following the rules. But that's just a way for you guys to sort of get to know each other. The teacher's room is also a discussion board forum where you can ask me questions. Certainly you can always email me. But, be sure to check the syllabus and the weekly checklist and the facts, frequently asked questions section first to see if your questions are answered there before you post to the teacher's room. And if you know the answer to a question that a classmate has maybe posting there, or if you have a comment, be sure to chime in. And of course, that section also is ungraded, but it is monitored. So finally, I give you 10 little important rules to succeed in the class. And I know it seems kind of boring, but try not to yawn, because reading this stuff and listening actually helps you to do better. And you can come back and listen to this video again anytime in the semester. It will remain available. So rule number 1, there are no dumb questions. In fact, really smart people always ask questions. So if you have a question, know first that I'm a professor who loves to interact with my students. And I'm a real people person. And I genuinely care about my students. I care that you do well in the class. So the impersonal nature of online classes kind of isn't really my thing at all. But that's a good thing for you, because it means that I want very much to get to know you individually. And it means that I'm going to really try hard to do that and to answer your questions. I really want to help you however and whenever I can. So if you have specific needs, concerns regarding this class at all, any questions, first look at the syllabus, look at the facts, go to the checklist, etc. But if you can't find answers there, then do feel free to email me. Second rule, read the announcements that I post. Read the emails that I send you. That's the only way that I have to communicate with you. If you don't read them, you're going to miss some important information. So if you see an email coming from me to the class, read it. Check off the tasks in the weekly checklist as you complete them regularly. That's the best advice that I can give you. Announcements and videos will be on the main page of our Brightspace course site. And also, again, I'll send you a Brightspace email. All the tasks for every week of the semester are listed under the weekly checklist tab. Be sure to take advantage of that. It is the best thing that you can do. And it's your responsibility to make sure that you read, that you keep up with the announcements, with the emails, with the weekly checklist. Rule 3, show up. Virtually, that is. We're building a community of writers and thinkers. This course is heavily dependent on your online engagement, your active participation. And so, again, I count your present each week fully if you've completed everything that you needed to do. If you haven't, done so, I'm losing my voice, I'll count you absent for part of the week. Not showing up will affect your grade in the class. If you're experiencing difficulties with technology, again, let me know. And I give you the phone number there for the main administrative office at the Straw Plains campus. They can always get a message to me. Rule 4, have respect. Hopefully you've heard Aretha Franklin sing about that in R-E-S-P-E-C-T. If you haven't, look her up on YouTube. Because she was awesome. So the drill and the drill. Yikes. Have respect for yourself, for your colleagues, and for me. Seriously. Disrespectful, inappropriate comments and behaviors aren't tolerated in my classes. I will not tolerate it. As I used to say to my daughter when she was a little girl. And then she would say to her dolls, I will not tolerate this behavior. And so seriously, if the comment or behavior would be considered inappropriate in the real classroom, it's also inappropriate online. So bear that in mind. Rule 5, don't plagiarize. We talked about that before. Plagiarism is serious. It's dealt with severely at this college. And if you're uncertain about what constitutes plagiarism, we will be talking about that a little bit later in the course when we get to MLA. But don't cheat. Please don't do that. It isn't worth it. Rule 6, submit things on time, as we've said before. And rule 7, be sure to watch the videos I post, because I'll be giving you some tips along the way that students who don't watch the videos will not know. I might even give you some tips for the final exam or for quizzes or for something like that that students who don't watch the videos will not know. So it's important to do that. I don't like to call these lectures because that sounds so icky. So I'm going to call them video musings instead. And so the musings appear on the main announcements page, as you know, and the videos will definitely help you succeed. Rule 8, work hard. Rule 9, if I mess up, tell me, because I'm human and I probably will mess up. Be respectful about it, hopefully, but do send me an email and tell me. So if you see a little typo, if you see an error with a date, if you see a technological issue, sometimes that's my fault. Sometimes it's just the fault of the system, or it's some glitch in the system. But if you see an error, let me know, and I will go the extra mile to fix the problem right away. And then rule number 10, again, if you want to get to know your classmates better, go to the 1010 Cafe and talk amongst yourselves. Finally, know that I'm here for you. We're in the midst of a challenging time that is unprecedented, with the pandemic, continuing and affecting our lives. So I'm going to maintain a strong sense of academic rigor. I'm going to expect you to turn in your work, to work hard, to turn things in on time. But I'm also going to go the extra mile to work with you, to be kind and generous to each one of you in all of my interactions with you, and to help you as much as I possibly can at each step along the way. So please, do your part to ensure your own success too. And remember that everything you do in college, you do for you. This is not like high school and middle school where you're required to be here. You're here by choice. And you do this for your future career, your future family. You're not doing this for me. You do this for your broadening of your own knowledge. So bear that in mind, that every time you turn something in, every time you work hard, every time you go the extra mile to do well, you're doing that for you. And finally, don't be nervous. You can do it. I know that I'm laying a lot of information on you, but you've got this. And don't be like the person who created that little meme above. Put the apostrophe in don't, for goodness sake. So next you see the actual reading schedule, and you can refer to it for information. But again, the best way to make sure you're on track is by going to the weekly checklist. So go to content, and then go all the way down to the left-hand sidebar and click on weekly checklist. And that's the best way to stay on track with all of the assignments that are due for every week in the class. And so that is pretty much it for the welcome and the syllabus review. Thanks for being patient with me. Again, welcome to the class, and have a great week, everyone.